Hi, everybody. Today we're doing a quick video on Delta Paper 2 Task 3, which is a longer written response of 40 marks. So let's go. Now, this task might include any of these topics. It could be about an analysis of resources or approaches and methodologies, different learners and contexts, and even language acquisition and teacher roles. 2 marks are awarded for up to a total of 30 marks. That means you can make 15 points because each point is 2 marks. Sometimes you might make fewer or more marks depending on the number of points you're making or the depth of the answer, which is exactly what is being said in the second point. So you can get a score between 1 to 5 for depth, and this will be doubled for a total of 10 because the overall, as we said, it's a 40-mark question on this paper. So, for example, if you score a 2, you would get a 4 out of 10. If you score a 5 on depth, you would get a 10 out of 10. Now, the input types are very interesting. You could have 1 or 2 extracts from some material for teachers or from a methodology or resource book. You could get a lesson plan extract, a transcript of teachers discussing a lesson, and an extract from tutor feedback. So as you can see, all of these can be very subjective in terms of the context, approaches, and theories, and so on. And that's why this question is so diverse and subjective, and you can make many different points. So the specific questions here are, for example, interpreting the teacher's role as exemplified in the material, which can be any of the extracts mentioned before, or it could be discussing the implications of this view on classroom practice itself. These are just examples, remember. It could be anything related to the topic, but something similar to this. So now you could have some analysis of historical or current perspectives, like some recent theories or developments, or something that happened or was popular in the past, like the direct method, for example. Then there are approaches and methodologies, theories of language acquisition, resources, learner and teacher roles. Now, good answers can include a reference to experience, examples, different contexts, maybe that the teacher or trainer has worked in, or even read about in books, a range of different sources. You don't always have to know the names of specific authors because it's not a memory test, but in general, you should have a good idea of all of these different theories, approaches, methodologies out there. And then let's take a look at a sample itself. So this is the extract. This is a task created by a teacher to obtain student feedback. So as we can see, the topic under discussion is student feedback. The teacher gets the student feedback in different steps, as we can see. So first, at the end of the lesson, the teacher gets student to talk about these stages and activities, maybe recall these stages and activities, and then writes them on board. Then the students award between 0 to 3 points about the usefulness and enjoyability of each stage. Then the students write a comment. There's even some sample comments here. The students are put in groups of 3 to discuss the answers. Then there's a collection of the scores and comments, some reading and comparing of these different perceptions. And finally, the teacher gathers everything learned from this feedback, and it is shared with the students in the next lesson. Now, the questions based on this extract are, why might a teacher want to obtain feedback? And this is divided into 2 parts. So we can see the first one is on these aspects of the lesson. So why might a teacher want to obtain feedback on these aspects? and using the procedures described in the box. So the one that we just saw with the students recalling, then reading, comparing, rating, all of that stuff happening. So those are some of the procedures. And then what reasons might be there against obtaining feedback from students? So as you can see, this question always involves some kind of counter argument to see your ability to work with different perspectives in ELT. So here we're discussing feedbacks, the aspects and the procedures here, and then we're taking it to the next level by discussing the negatives and other approaches that might be useful. So let's take a look at some answers. Here's the sample answer. We can take a look at some of the points discussed here. So this is just the intro part. What's happening? The teacher's collecting data on the usefulness and enjoyability for different stages and activities. And the teacher wants to know their attitudes for different reasons, which might be gauging their motivation and engagement, okay? Or checking which stages and activities have the most effect on their immediate memory so that the teacher may plan more such activities. There's a mention of doability of the tasks, SMART goals related to the student's intelligibility, capacity, and so on, along with the classroom dynamics as well, like pair work, seating arrangements, types of activities that result in more productivity than others. And also, there's a mention of a diagnosis of learner needs to personalize classes. The teacher may also want to collect some ideas about the learner's beliefs about language and learning itself. So here, maybe you could go into further detail about approaches and theories and so on. That all depends. And the context even. So here, there's a mention of different learning styles for a heterogeneous group, a mixed ability group, or another group where students have different L1s or a multilingual classroom. To check perceptions, to allow students a chance to share thoughts about the lesson. Okay, that could also encourage autonomy. So you could have mentioned some more detail here. And then we have this one here, which is weak, intermediate, and strong learners. So there's a mention of differentiation as well, so that everybody gets a chance to share their perspective. So also inclusivity here. Then we have informing future planning classes and even taking it to the next level by talking about syllabus and the course itself, which is informal evaluation at this stage, but it could be more formal depending on how the data is collected and stored. And then there's a mention of conducting action research or pedagogical research. So these might be the different reasons for collecting data. Then we come to the second part. Already more than 5 points have been made in the first one, I think. So that's good considering that there are three parts to this answer. So even making 5 points would give you a total of 15 points, which would add up to 30. And then the rest of the points would be for the depth of the answer. So let's see this one. The teacher could be using the data collection method for different reasons, such as hot feedback, which is the freshest feedback collected, as opposed to the cold feedback, which might be collected later when the memory of an event is gone. So this gives the teacher the best quality data. The information is collected from the direct source, which is the students here, making it more reliable. The teachers have plenty of information from this method, from the students' ability to recognize the purposes of different activities at each stage of the lesson. While highlighting the least liked and least memorable activities. So that could be necessary to eliminate those activities based on the classroom practice itself. Then we have the activity gives students a chance to retrospect. So here they've mentioned the purpose of each activity, and giving the teacher a chance to conduct post-lesson reflection. That's interesting. And then there's a mention of how the teacher can use it to redesign, to make the class more likable, to make the different stages more likable, useful, and highlight the purpose of those activities in a more meaningful way. Okay. And this might reaffirm as well as challenge the teacher's beliefs about their teaching in multiple ways. Okay. Here, there could be a mention of beliefs, different beliefs, and adding to different contexts to give it more depth. But then we move on to the next section, the B part of the answer. So we've seen A, 1 and 2, and this is now B. So again, there's a general statement. Obtaining feedback from students has its drawbacks regardless of being beneficial. So these can be, it can be unreliable if it's long and conducted at the end of the class when the students are in a hurry to take the next class. So they may not follow the instructions and because of haste, and they might provide incorrect responses. When students participate in such methods of data collection earnestly, they may follow their peers' responses. Yes, they may get influenced and change their answers. So there's a mention of reduced effectiveness because it's not backed by any critical thinking, retrospection, and reflection. So it all depends, but let's see more. Younger students, there's another context mentioned. They tend to be misled by entertaining activities. We also see some hedging here, which is always good to have. It just means not making 100% certain statements, just leaving that bit of uncertainty here. And then we have giving them higher ranking to these activities, more votes and better comments. Okay. There might be some repetition in some of the points I'm thinking. Okay, here we can see another one. So the students might not be experts in language education and learning, so they may not recognize the purpose of each stage. Okay. And then providing simple, easy to fill forms, exit slips can be a better way to collect feedback. So there's a mention of alternative ways of feedback collection and other practices. Quick oral feedback on critical incidents. So this is a good point, I think. So this can be a viable alternative. So there's a mention of practicality and objectivity here as well to generate more candid and sincere responses, especially when they're not being recorded, when students can be more spontaneous and they want to give concrete suggestions for improvement. And that's it. So we've seen a sample response. Please comment on the video to tell us how else can this answer be improved. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.